Aragami is a stealth action game set in a feudal Japan setting. You play as an undead assassin named Aragami with the power to control shadows. Now, this game is really heavily about the stealth aspect. It's very difficult to fight or deal with many enemies at once. You're oftentimes going to find yourself completely overwhelmed and just getting killed because you maybe alerted enemies and stuff like that. So it's going to punish you and very much force you to try and creep around and crawl around and come behind enemies and try and slice their necks and stuff like that with your swords. Now, this game doesn't just stop with simply coming up behind enemies and killing them. You also have to dispose of their bodies, whether you burn them or maybe you just go around and try and kill everyone else because you don't want anyone to alert anyone. If you get caught or if an enemy sees you for too long and then alerts his others, he'll blow a horn, which will alert the entire camp basically, and you'll have a ton of people swarming to your location. And as I mentioned before, this game very much punishes you for playing aggressively. So if you just try and go out guns blazing, basically, you're going to find yourself overwhelmed. And the game also locks you in an animation when you kill enemies with your regular traditional attack, and so you're going to find yourself stuck if you ever get swarmed by enemies and they're just going to kill you as soon as that's done, or maybe even while it's going on. Now, Aragami also really heavily plays up the light and dark aspect of the game. Basically, if you are in the shadows, you gain power that can be used for different abilities, whereas if you're in the light, you don't gain any at all. So you have to oftentimes stay in the darkness or try and plan out a route where if I'm going to blink at somebody and then blink back, I have to make sure I have enough power or make sure that I blink to the correct areas that I can continually gain power. And there's a ton of different powers you can also gain in this game. There's a skill tree, so basically as you go around the map, you'll find scrolls which gain you skill points that you can use to buy different abilities, like that demon killing ability, or an ability to pull enemies into a black hole trap, or an ability to throw a kunai at someone to kill them, and stuff like that. Now, going on to level design, they clearly put in a lot of attention in trying to make sure the maps were pretty well designed for the mechanics of the game, by making sure that the shadows are in the right spot and stuff like that so that you can actually use your powers effectively. They've also done a pretty decent job in this game with making sure the level design has a lot of different methods and ways to take on objectives by allowing you to do things like being able to sneak behind enemies or jump on them from above, or laying traps that you can then make noise to lure enemies into. Each level in this game is also pretty lengthy. There's a lot of time that you'll spend on each individual level. All of the levels more or less follow the same pattern as well. You start in one area and have to get to another area. By doing that, you have to disable different orb crystal things that disable the force fields, which allow you to then pass through those areas and then take out the enemies and get the scrolls in those areas. There's also two different boss levels that have different mechanics to them. I will say the second one felt kind of bad. It's towards the end of the game, and I think that maybe it was rushed a little bit, but the first one does feel a lot more interesting and a lot more well-designed. You can also play the game entirely in co-op if you like, which is pretty cool. You can do synchronized kills and stuff like that, taking out enemies. I did feel like it was pretty well designed from this standpoint, and the maps worked fairly well for it. Now, overall, you're looking at about 4.5 to 6 hours of gameplay for the main story, depending on how fast and slow you go and whether you go for all the scrolls or not, or if you're playing co-op. And once you're done with the main story, there's also a level editor, so you can create your own missions if you want, or you can download new ones from the workshop. These can also be played in co-op, which is really awesome. Now, one area where Aragami really drops the balls in the story. There's basically two ways it's told, through these pre-rendered, kind of cartoon animated style cinematics, and also in-game dialogue cutscenes. And really, they're just not that very interesting at all. The dialogue is boring, it's bland, it's corny, it's cheesy, the story isn't told very well. It's just lame. It really is just lame. That's the best way I can describe it. Now, moving on to the graphics, the game has a cartoony look. It's decently looking, but it's not going to blow you away by any means. Now, overall, is Aragami a fun game? Yes. Is the story bad? Yes. But the gameplay is fun enough that I found enough enjoyment for the $7 I got it on sale. Even at $10, I'd say it's probably a decent value. I would give this game a 7 out of 10. It's not amazing. It's not going to blow your mind away, but it's a fun game that you can just kind of pick up, especially if you're going to play it in co-op with a buddy and just have some fun with.